And now we're talking with Coach David Strother, the head coach of the women's soccer team here at ICC. And Coach Strother, a very special year, and we're going to kind of look back over that year and all the high points and everything that went along with the season. So real quick, just kind of a quick recap or overview from your season.
Yeah, so it was a phenomenal season for us. Best season in program history. Finished with a 17-4 record. Finished as co-North Division champions in the MAC JC, and then also advanced all the way to the conference championship, where we unfortunately lost in the conference final. But a great run, 16-game winning streak within that 17-4 season, and some just great accomplishments all the way through.
All right, so we're going to break down the season kind of stage by stage, and you talk about finishing 17-4. Well, the interesting thing about that is you started the season 1-3. So you started off against ASA Miami, which is a traditional powerhouse. Picked up a big win on the road in double overtime at Southwest Mississippi. Hit a hiccup with Southwest Tennessee, and then opened division play with a 4-2 loss to the eventual state champion, region champion Holmes. But we avenged that a little bit later on in the season. We'll talk about that later on. But yeah, 17-4, start the season 1-3. So what was your mindset going into that 1-3 start?
Well, at 1-3, I felt like we were still trying to figure some things out, and unfortunately, in our league, you don't have a lot of time to make adjustments and make any diabolical changes. The good thing is, I knew we had the talent for it. I'd seen our talent in the preseason. I felt comfortable with what we had. The issue that we were having was just trying to put it all together. And even at 1-3, I knew we'd be capable of just focusing on really one game at a time, and that's something I challenged them with. Literally, after that Holmes match, we were up 2-0 at halftime in the first division game of the season at their place, which is always a tough place to play at, and we lost it. 4 goals scored in the final 20 minutes, and so I challenged my team after that match, one game at a time. If we can just focus on the details in preparation, I think we have a good result, and even challenge them about seeing Holmes the next time around, where we could be at a 9-0 winning streak, and it's exactly what we were the second time that we'd seen Holmes.
Well, you said take it one game at a time. Well, you rattled off 16 straight before ultimately losing in the state championship, first ever state championship appearance as well. So for people that may not keep up with soccer and may not know a whole lot about it, 16 straight wins in the game of soccer is very impressive. You don't play doubleheaders like baseball or softball does in a day. You may play 2 games in a week, maybe 3. It depends on your scheduling and how Mother Nature affects everything.
Right.
But to win 16 straight, to say that's impressive feels like an understatement.
Yeah, and there's something I had to go back and look at after the end of the season. I was doing some reflection, and I didn't realize that we didn't even lose a whole match or a match in the entire month of September. Didn't lose one in October either until the conference championship. So it was almost 8 entire weeks of undefeated play, and so it was an impressive run. Something that we're definitely going to strive for in 2020, but it's going to be a very tough task. But it was something that was amazing to be part of.
Well, the next 3 matches, as you talked about, undefeated in September. You opened up September with a 6-0 win at home over Hines. Backed that up with a 3-1 win against East Central. Went on the road and picked up a 2-1 overtime win at Northwest. Northwest is a team that it's just something about it, Coach. When they see Itawamba across the chest and we see Northwest across the chest and across the way, it just brings out the best in every sport here at ICC. So, that was your next 3 division games. Kind of break those down.
Yeah, so like you said, result against Hines and East Central, I felt comfortable with what we were doing against those 2 opponents. Even against Northwest in that final division play, felt comfortable. We just weren't putting the ball in the back of the net that day. And like you said, I don't know if it's because we all recruit the same players or we recruit in the same districts, but it is always a battle anytime that we see Northwest. It becomes tougher and tougher every single year. And so we were fortunate enough to have a Ranger killer past 2 seasons. Grace Joyce, she was a player from Oxford High School and played for us over the past 2 seasons. And out of those 4 matches against Northwest, she had 3 game winners in those 4 matches. 2 of those being overtime game winners. And so Grace was one of those that got that game-winning goal for us against Northwest at Northwest. And that was the final division match of the first leg of division. So it put us in a good spot going into the second leg of division play. We were just behind Holmes, sitting in second place with 9 points, with a possibility of 12, and I knew that we would have the opportunity to get all 12 points in the second leg based on how well we've been playing.
Now your next 5 matches to finish out September, of course, out of division play. Out of those 5 matches, 3 of them were shutouts. One of them a very convincing win, 7-0 over Dyersburg State. Picked up a hard-fought 4-3 win over Gulf Coast. Then at Columbia State, which is not a short trip, but not too bad of a trip, but 3-0 win there. Pearl River, who is a team that's been really good in the South, you battled to a 1-0 victory there and finished out September with a 4-1 win over Motlow. Over that 5-game streak, I guess we want to talk more about the fact that we had those 3 clean sheets and just the momentum that you get. You and the girls kind of gained through that 5-game stretch.
Yeah, so as the season got going deeper and deeper, there's just a level of confidence that was taking place. And it was something I wanted to see with the team because I knew we'd be challenged in the second leg of division. I knew we'd be challenged with that non-division schedule that you just mentioned. Columbia State is no longer a new program. They're a second-year team out of Tennessee, but they're an extremely competitive team. They actually won their region this past season. Motlow is another good team who had won the Tennessee region last year. And then Pearl River, who is always a contender, who we eventually saw in the conference semifinals. I knew that they were having a good season and weren't giving away a lot of goals. So a 1-0 result, we'd been scoring a lot of goals up to that point, but a 1-0 result against a team like that, I felt very comfortable and very proud of the achievement that the girls were showing all the way through September, getting ready for the second leg of division at the beginning of October.
Now, Coach, we just talked about it. Rattled off an undefeated September month, and then that leads you into October with a head full of steam. And waiting for you there on October the 1st is Holmes, the team that's leading the North, the team that you were up 2-0 on, and then they found a way to come back and pick up that win. But, you avenged this one with a hard-fought 3-2 victory in Fulton in front of probably one of the largest crowds we've had in a while at a soccer match. Before we move on to any of the other ones, let's just talk about this matchup here because this was the premier matchup of the year.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, it seems like as Holmes and us have begun playing the past few seasons, it's more and more competitive, and it's something that we certainly strive for. Holmes has been leading the North the past few seasons, and I feel like we've been able to get closer and closer to them. Really, in reality, the way that the state recruiting has gone the past few seasons, it's kind of been our recruiting in the North, Holmes recruiting in the central part of Mississippi, and then Jones recruiting down in the South. Well, now you have Pearl River getting a little bit stronger. You have Hines coming back into the central part of Mississippi. You have East Central coming back into our league doing well. You have Northwest growing. And so we're trying to keep pace with the ones that we've been trying to keep pace with the past few seasons, and we're still trying to separate ourselves from the ones that are trying to catch up. But Holmes is one of those premier matchups that we always look forward to on our calendar 2 times a year. Turned out to be 3 times a year for this season, but we definitely always look forward to it. So they came into our place. They're a dynamic goal-scoring team. I think they broke every single conference record this year with the amount of goals that they were putting in. And so I knew they were going to be a very dynamic offensive team just from the time that we'd seen them the previous time at their place where they scored 4 goals on us in 20 minutes. So we had a game plan. We get to going, and I think in the minute and a half they score and make it 1-0. So game plan doesn't go right out the window, but the game plan does have to be focused a little bit more. So we responded about 10 minutes later to tie it up. About 5 minutes later, got the go-ahead goal that took us 2-1 into overtime. Felt good about some tactical adjustments we had planned for the second half. And again, a minute into the second half, they score again to make it 2-2. So it's just that type of battle where I thought the team that could weather the storm of their opponent would have the chance at the end of the game, and we did that. I think around the 82nd or 83rd minute, we got the go-ahead goal from a great takeaway in the defensive in their defensive third and our attacking third. A great takeaway that led to a goal-scoring opportunity. Ashley Stevens had to poke it in from about 2 feet out, and I asked her at the end of the game. I said, "Was that the easiest goal or the toughest goal that you've scored since you've been here?" And she said it was a little bit of both. Yeah. And but then even after that, we're up 3-2, and I thought for the last 5 minutes we could have maybe even scored 1 or 2 more. And it was a game that I thought that very well, if we were going to see them again, it would have been for the conference final because that was the way the brackets were going to line up. And I thought it was certainly a game that we would probably see again, and we did about a month later.
And the biggest thing of that, take away from a fan's perspective or from the play-by-play perspective, they had the nation's leading scorer coming into that match. She left here with no additional goals to her tally that speaks to the discipline and the sticking to the game plans you talked about for your girls.
Yeah, and she was a dynamic player for our league, probably one of the most dynamic players to come through since I've been here within this league. So anytime that you face an opponent that has a player like that, you have to prepare for them. Shame on you and shame on your team if you don't. And so we had some tactical adjustments, even some personnel adjustments that some players that had limited minutes leading up to that game, and we were well over halfway through the season, had stepped in and contributed straight away as starting players in that particular game because of their skill sets matched up well to her skill sets. I thought we caused some frustration for her, not really allowing her to turn, not really allowing her to get on the ball, and there was just a really great energy, not just defending her, but really defending all the way up and down the field for that entire game. What I liked about it too was even though it wasn't a shutout for us, it was an effort that was good enough to incorporate a shutout, and it led to 5 more shutouts for us through the course of the remainder of the season.
And speaking of that, so now that you're tied with Holmes in the North, of course, goal differential, that's another breakdown for another day.
Right.
But you had to take care of business to finish out the year, and you did so. A pair of 5-0 wins at Hines, and again here against Northwest. The one I went with you guys at East Central, it was a 1-0 win there in double overtime, and it was one where East Central had their game plan, much like you did against Holmes, and the girls just willed themselves to victory.
Yeah.
And that, to me, late in the season, even though you had already rattled off all these wins, that, to me, was a statement win because things weren't going their way. They never got frustrated. They never quit. And they found a way to win. Yeah,
and that's exactly what it was. It's not hiccup games, but whatever reason, maybe it's the accumulation of the amount of games you play over the course of the season. You're going to have those games where you have to fight through and you have to dig through. East Central had a plan. I thought that they were very organized. They have been. Now that they've had new leadership with Coach Ryan Joyner the past 2 seasons. He keeps them very disciplined defensively, and they don't give away a lot of chances. And we were an offensive-minded team. We like to be aggressive, and we were not finding the back of the net that day. So we go into overtime and it's 0-0, and I did talk to my team about that. We'd been on a great run, and I told them, I said, I think it was maybe 10 or 11 games in a row that we had won. I said, you've had an 11-game winning streak, and it's okay to be 12 games undefeated. You can tie this game, and you'll still have a 12-game undefeated streak. Yeah. And I did that to challenge them. Yeah. And I wanted to see how they responded to it, and they responded exactly how I was hoping they would. And they said, a tie's not good enough. We expect to win this game, and we're going to go out and win this game. And I think with 40 seconds left in the second overtime, we get a corner kick, and off of that corner kick, we score. Now, what's neat about that moment is our outside back got the ball at midfield and drove the ball on a dribble just to make something happen. Just that that tenacity you're talking about. Goes all the way down, earns a corner kick. We get a corner. The one that usually serves a corner says she doesn't feel good about it, and so we switch out the players. And the one that usually takes the corner is the one that ended up scoring that corner. So Hallie Moore is usually our corner kick specialist. She said she just wasn't feeling good about it. Another player stepped in, sent that ball into Hallie, and she hit it with a little flick into the back of the net, and it was a great celebration on East Central's field.
Just the way you drew it up.
Absolutely, it always is.
Well, you finished out the regular season. You went to Southwest Tennessee, picked up a 3-1 win, kind of avenged that loss from earlier in the year, and then closed out at home against Meridian on sophomore day with a 4-2 win there as well. So wrapping up that regular season, had to feel good to go on the road, kind of avenge that win. I went with you on that trip, and that was kind of the mantra, the focus of the girls is saying, hey, they beat us on that day. It's time to beat them on their field, and they did.
Yeah, and that was something I challenged to them at the beginning of the game in our pregame talk. It was letting them know, not who we've been, but who we are now and who we're looking to be as we continue to grow through the season. And so at that 1-3 record early in the season, that's who we were. I'm always a stickler for records don't lie. Even there's no excuses. A record is a record, and if you show up and you do the things you're supposed to do, you should take care of business. And we were not taking care of business early in the season, and so we knew that Southwest would have that chip on their shoulder because they felt like, well, it was 7-5 win, but they still didn't get the appreciation and credit that they felt like they deserved. And so we knew they were going to be a contest. It would be a battle. And now the challenge for me to my team was just making sure we recognize we're a good enough team now. We can be even better. So focus on who we are now, and we can keep growing on this as we continue to get ready for our conference play in the playoffs.
And so now let's shift gears into the playoffs, talking with Coach David Strother, looking back on a very special year for the ICC women's soccer team. So you host the quarterfinals against Gulf Coast, a team that you saw during the regular season as well. And 4-0 was the decision in that one, or the result in that one. And it was a match where the ladies came ready to play. Like, they were on a mission now that postseason started, and it showed in this match. Not slighting Gulf Coast in any sense, but they were ready.
Yeah.
Just talk about that vibe heading into the playoffs.
Well, we'd seen Gulf Coast previously in the season, and whenever we played them early in the season, I thought we did quite well. Got into a good rhythm, scored some goals, and then we just gave up. About 15 minutes of really, really important work, and in those 15 minutes, Gulf Coast actually scored 3 goals and took the lead against us. So we had to fight back, and so it was a challenge that I had for my team as we were going into conference play into the playoffs, to just understand that you don't get those types of opportunities again. You know, in the playoffs, you give away those types of goals, that very well could be the end of your season. So we wanted to make sure that we were focused for 90 minutes and didn't have any moments where we gave up and just stopped working. And so to get an early goal, and I think it was only 1-0 at halftime, but the game was still being controlled by us. It opened up in the second half because of the way that we just eventually beat our opponent down. And I was really, really pleased with it being the opening conference tournament game, with it being a shutout at home. I think that was the first playoff game in history that had been won at home. Mm-hmm. And so it was a great result. It was something I didn't even talk to the team about until afterwards, because I didn't want to put that pressure on them. But I knew that if we could get some good momentum going into that first leg, it would lead to us moving into the semifinals down at Hines to really have some momentum to continue to grow and continue this season as long as we possibly could.
And then you go to Hines, take on Pearl River. And Pearl River's a team that soccer, softball, baseball, basketball, bump jacks, anytime we play them in postseason play, they seem to have our number.
Yeah. And
you guys were able to battle over that, picked up a 2-0 win in the semifinals to advance to the first ever conference championship game. Another fun atmosphere for that game. You know, the girls were ready. Mm-hmm. They were ready to go, and they had that confidence throughout the regular season. And that pressure, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on in the interview, that pressure of having that 15-16 game win streak never really showed. I mean, it may have, and I may have not seen it, but they were just doing their thing. And another shutout to advance to the championship game with a 2-0 win over Pearl River. Yeah,
and it wasn't pressured. It was something that I didn't really talk to the girls too much about until after a game. In fact, I think through the course of that, I didn't even realize what number we were on, and some of them after a match reminded me about it. I think I said, "Hey, that's 11 in a row." Like, Coach, actually, that's been 13 in a row. And so, you know, even for myself, I didn't really focus on the number. I was really just focusing on the preparation for our opponents, and I think that's something that the team really took pride in as well. We have a lot of meetings. My team jokingly tells me that all the time. I love to talk. My team tells me that all the time as well. But I feel like that preparation is really something that separates our program from other programs. I do my homework on our opponents. I do my homework on our skill sets in relation to their skill sets. It's my responsibility to give the best opportunity to my teams. And so I felt like they really responded well to that. Like, they came in and they were engaged in the way that we prepared for our opponents. We even had one game this year where I gave the team the film, and I said, "You guys put together your game plan." And I had an idea just in case it didn't work out, if it went a different direction. But it was exactly how I would have drawn it up. Some of the skill sets based on our formation to our opponent's formation. So when I did that early in the season, it was a plan to still be prepared for our opponents as we got into postseason play. So going back to the Pearl River game, we started in a particular formation that I thought would be a good skill set based on our opponent. Game gets going. They've got some personnel in different positions than what we were expecting. We let it play through the first half, and in the second half, at halftime, we made the adjustments. Now, what was neat about that is because we had done that before in the season, I had given that opportunity to my team early in the season to have that flexibility. There was never any panic. You know, some teams you go from a 4-4-2 to a 4-3-3, and teams are going to freak out because they're not used to it. Our team had a lot of flexibility. We could go to a 3-back system just as easy to a 4-back system. We could go to 2 forwards just as easy as 3 forwards, and they never panic on it. And so we did that in Pearl River. It was 0-0 at halftime. We went to a different formation in the second half, really tried to put a little bit more of a higher press against them, and off of that we got 2 goals, and 2 late goals. I think the first goal wasn't scored until maybe the 80th minute or around that mark. And we got that first goal. I told them if we kept pressing, it would open up because they got to send numbers forward to get a goal. Got to around the 88th minute, and we got that second go-ahead goal. And I think that was the reality of the girls saw that, we're moving on to the championship game now.
And, of course, moving on to the championship game, and again, it always comes back to at Holmes. We dropped that 3-1 decision. That 3-1, everybody's like, oh, it was dominated by Holmes. It really wasn't. It was a sloppy track, to steal a horse racing terminology. Weather come through. Hines did a great job of having the field in playing condition, period. But you had your shots late. And I think that's kind of, even though it resulted in a loss, really spoke volumes to the team this year. Were they down? Yes. Could they have given up? Yes. Did they? No. And that's really a testimony for your girls, your coaching style, and just the team as a whole this season.
Yeah, you know, it's a game that, like I said earlier, Holmes is a dynamic team that wants to go forward and score a lot of goals. They went on us 2-0 in the first half. We got back into it 2-1. At halftime, I felt really comfortable because I knew there were more goals that would be scored going into the second half, and I thought we'd be in that direction. I thought we'd have a good chance to do that and maybe tie the game up and then take the lead. So 2-1 at halftime, 5 minutes into the second half, a questionable call outside the box. You know, like I said earlier, though, you know, you show up and you play. Field conditions, referees, opponents, injuries, like all that doesn't matter. You just got to get out there and play. But they get a free kick, a well-taken free kick, makes it 3-1. And I felt like probably all the way through the whole course of the season, earlier into the 1-3 season at the beginning of the season, we probably had about 20 minutes where we went back into that, though, and we just didn't play how we were capable of playing. And that's on me because I probably did make some quick tactical adjustments where I wasn't able to prepare my players for that. So we had a little bit of a rush because we did try to change a formation because we were 2 goals down. And I feel like for about 20 minutes, it took us time to get settled in. But the last 15 minutes of the game, we were all over them. We were getting corners, we were getting shots, we were getting additional chances. We just weren't getting anything to go into the back of the net. So, you know, you talking about that fight, that was something I was so proud of them because, you know, you're down by 2. There's 10 minutes left to go in the game. You could stop, and we didn't. We were pressing, and even to the final 30 seconds, I think we had one final shot, and it was still just through the end of the game. Holmes earned it, and we were extremely appreciative of them being our opponent. We thought we were the 2 best teams in the conference to see one another in the final, and so they earned the result, and we're thankful that we got a chance to play against them. But at the same time, I'm very appreciative of the work rate that my girls did and the resiliency, like you said, going all the way through the game and not giving up. 3-1, but fighting through it, trying to make it 3-2 and even 3-3 at the end of the game.
And Holmes, of course, would go on to win state, region before ultimately being defeated by Tyler, who I think won the national tournament this year. So not too shabby of a team to go out there. David, you have a few more minutes to come back, kind of look at what's coming up, next steps for the program, because we're up against commercial break here on the show. You got some time to...
Absolutely.
And welcome back to the ICC Hour. We're continuing our conversation with Coach David Strother, talking about the past season for the Lady Indians, a 17-4 record overall, finished runner-up in state, co-North Division champions, just an outstanding season, a historic season for your Lady Indians. All right, so David, what's next for the program? I know you're like me, you're a competitor. You're not going to sit back and be like, okay, this is a good season, we did good. Probably the day after, you enjoyed it a few days, and then you hit the ground running, get ready to build towards next season. What's next for the program?
Well, you know, we want to continue growing. I think we talked about that every single season. Usually in our recaps you and I have, it's always about growing and improving. 17-4 is, you know, record-wise, it's going to be real tough to improve on a 17-4 record. But we want the program to become even more stable. We want it to always be stronger than what it was whenever a class leaves. Like, that's the challenge I always present to my sophomore class. You know, is this program better than what it was before you got here? And it's never an offense to the previous sophomore class. We just want it to grow. And so that's something we really want to continue. What's neat about our 2020 recruiting class is, in reality, a lot of that was already in place before we went on this season. And so, you know, the 2020s that committed to us were wanting to be a part of this before we ever went on this great run. So now we're seeing success in our recruiting in our 2021s and our 2022s because of the success that this past 2019 season has had. So we just want it to grow. We want to continue to be one of the dominant forces, not just in the North Division of the MACJC, but we want to be one of the dominant forces all the way across the state, all the way across the region, and we want to move towards the national tournament. Like, that's our goals, and that's something we're going to be striving for in our spring preparation with the sophomores that will be returning. And then also as we move forward into our freshman class coming in, we just want to grow this. And we also want to give our opportunity for our sophomores that will be leaving us to continue to improve their craft this spring, so they'll be prepared for that four-year university once they leave us.
All right, so let's talk about this sophomore class. Obviously, leaving as one of the most successful sophomore classes in program history. What does this sophomore class, one, mean to the program, two, mean to you?
Yeah. So to the program, the titles and the records will stand, and that'll show what it means to the program. I think there's been so many numerous personnel across campus and even across the community that have just reached out to me as the leader of the team, just saying, hey, how appreciative they are of having the student athletes that we bring into campus be a part of their classroom environment, be a part of this community. And so even with them, they say we hate to see them go, and that means a lot to me. That means we're recruiting the right type of student athletes. We obviously want competitors and winners, but we want them to do it in the right way, and we want them to be successful in the classroom just as much as they are on the field, and they've been able to do that. And so they're gonna leave a great mark on this program, but more importantly, they're gonna leave a great mark on this whole entire campus community. So for me, it goes back into all those things. I always hate this part of the process because I have to say goodbye to them, but I always enjoy this part of the process because I get to see them become mature young ladies and go into that next step and see that success. And I feel like being a part of Itawamba soccer, being challenged on the way that I challenge my team, the way I challenge my players, I feel like we create good stewards of the game, but more importantly, we help create good young ladies that can go out and be great, successful professionals once they're done with their college careers. And hopefully that's something that they will continue to do. I doubt they'll wake up at 6 a.m. every single morning on their own time, but I feel like that'll be something they can know that, like, with the willingness and the determination to be successful in soccer, that'll lead to a willingness and determination to be successful in their professional careers.
And of course, some of that success does result in postseason awards. You look at two being named All-Region. That was Emily Hayward and Grace Joyce, both out of Oxford. Then you had Anna Wesley Driscoll, Ashley Stevens, and Allie Xin earning all MACJC honors. 5 bringing in postseason awards. You can only put 11 on the field.
That's right.
So not too shabby there. Nearly almost half of the team. If you can cut somebody in half, give them half an award then. But just talk about those 5, and of course we'll talk a little bit more in depth on Anna Wesley for her unique season as well. But just talk about those individual awards.
Well, the 2 sophomores you mentioned, Allie Xin and Grace Joyce. Grace Joyce was a 2-time All-Region 23 selection, so it's a great honor for her. She was a leading goal scorer for us last fall as a freshman. This season, she finished second in goals, second in points. Even missed a few games early in the season because of a lingering hamstring injury, but got healthy, did the things she was supposed to do in her rehab, and came back full force. Was scoring big goals for us. She wasn't really the one that was going to score 3 or 4 goals a game, but it was the goals she scored in big moments. That's really what propelled Grace Joyce's success. Allie Xin, All-Region selection last year, all conference selection this season. Absolute workhorse. Allie was one of those that sometimes I'd move her into one position and then move her to another position, and she was always dynamic wherever she went. And so always appreciative of the work ethic that she brought in, both in practice and in a game environment. I feel like it propelled her teammates to push. And then Ashley Stevens, as a freshman, was one of those that was a dynamic goal scorer in high school, scored a lot of goals for Amory High School and Coach Nathan Clayton over there. You come in from high school and you go to college, and now it's a lot different. The way that you score goals here is not exactly the way you score them in high school, where maybe a lot are through breakaways and just your athleticism is better than your opponent's athleticism. Well, in college, everyone's athleticism is even, and your speed is just as equal to your opponent's speed. And so she had to learn different ways to run, different ways to get on the ball. And once she started learning those things, it really got to be exciting to watch her. I thought she was probably the hardest working player we had off ball. And what I mean by that is, so many times you see a goal scorer that scores, you don't see all the work they do to get in positions to put themselves in areas to score. And she did that. She did that repetitively. If we asked her to press and do hard defending, she was willing to do that too. And then you have Emily Hayward, who is an all-region player as a freshman, which is exciting. Anytime you have an all-region player as a freshman, get that honor, because usually those go towards sophomores. Our leading goal scorer, though, and she was a leading goal scorer as a midfield player. So a lot of times goal scorers are the forwards and playing in the middle of the field. She was a left wing for us who's dominant right foot, and taking her athleticism, allowing her to be in 1v1 situations, get by defenders, and then also just her tenacity to want to go score goals. A lot of times it was, if we were struggling in a game, it was like, well, just get the ball out left, get it out to Emily, let her go score. And she really responded well to that. She wanted that pressure, and she did a really good job for us.
And then we're going to talk about Anna Wesley. She earned all conference honors, but throughout the regular season, 6 times she was named Keeper of the Week. And I'm going to let you explain this a little bit better, but she came in, was going to compete for a spot, and then all of a sudden, due to outside factors, just got thrown into the spot as a keeper and saying, oh, by the way, don't get hurt. We don't really have a true backup for you right now.
Right.
So kind of speak on that.
Yeah, so we had at the start of the 2019 season, we had a plan to have a sophomore returning goalkeeper, and Anna West come in as our freshman goalkeeper. For me, it's never about class. It's just about competitiveness. So it didn't matter if you're a freshman or sophomore. Whoever's maybe playing the best they can be at that particular moment will be getting the minutes, or depending on the opponent. Well, in the summer before the 2019 season, our returning sophomore goalkeeper decided to enlist into the military, which is an absolutely phenomenal honor, and we're very appreciative of her service. But did so, and by doing that, her shipping date was August 4th, and our report date was August 5th for soccer. Yeah. So it wasn't going to really be something that we could balance out, and so. That late into the summer, there's usually not that many players still on the board to try and go and find. And so I reached out to Wes, and I just told her about the situation and just said, make sure you keep yourself healthy over the summer. We'll do our best to keep you healthy through preseason. But at this time, you are our only goalkeeper. And for her, it was just, okay, coach, that's no big deal. And I don't think she really realized the ramifications of it. But whenever she got into preseason and saw how hard we train and how hard I pushed the team, it was like, oh, goodness, I got to make sure that I do protect myself and not put myself in a situation to have to maybe bring in a field player and have them step in as the backup. And so she came in, and sometimes as goalkeepers, it's a mental aspect of the game too. And at the beginning of the season, like we've already talked about, she was 1-3, and we were 1-3, and a lot of that pressure can be on a goalkeeper, even though it shouldn't have been. We weren't playing very well in front of her, and so for her to kind of push that to the side and start focusing on it one game at a time. Like you said, 6 Conference of the Week goalkeeper selections, which was the most in the league since I've been in this league. And then also the shutouts that were coming her way. It was just a game-by-game confidence, and you could see that. And then her vocality got a little bit more, and she started bossing her team around a little bit more and pushing them on the back line and not letting them settle for being undisciplined in their work rate. And because she was being so successful, it wasn't about like she was pointing fingers. It was about giving instruction, and they responded really well to it. And so now that we had her go every single minute for us as a freshman, we know that we're going to have leadership in that goal for 2020. And we're excited about building around her and also bringing in an incoming freshman that can compete with her as well.
And to piggyback off what you said about her just taking that leadership role and not me, but every time we interviewed her about getting Keeper of the Week, the first thing she said would always contribute to would be her back line, helping take some of that pressure off her and play of that, and a good sense on that. Now, there was one other award that the team earned this year, and I know you're a humble guy, but we're going to talk about it. Coach of the Year. Yeah. And that goes to you. And this is one thing I don't think a lot of people realize is that you and Sully don't have assistant coaches. You're kind of each other's assistant coaches, but in that sense, you don't have assistant coach in the second half because Sully's getting ready, and Sully don't have one in the first half because you're getting your girls rounded up. And so just obviously it's a team award, but just talk about just the honor of getting named Coach of the Year in the league?
Well, it's a tremendous honor, and don't take it lightly because I think there's some exceptional coaches that are in our league. What was really neat about it is it's an award that is voted on by my peers within this league. So I'm very appreciative that they saw me as even being fitting for an award like that, and to even be nominated for it is something I definitely appreciate. But the reality is, if we don't have a successful season, then I'm not even nominated for that award. So it's not even on me. You know, I prepare my team, but it's really about the team buying in and doing the work that's needed for us to be successful so that we can get these accolades. So it all comes down to the players producing, and you know, even though it's an individual award that goes to me and it has the coaching title in it, it really is a team award, and I'm extremely appreciative of my players doing the things that I ask of them, and I do ask a lot of them.
Yeah.
So to do the things that I ask of them and not do it in a worrisome tone, just okay, this is what we're doing, and not even necessarily having to ask why, because they know the why. They know that we're doing this because this is what Coach knows will help us prepare for our opponent. And so I'm very appreciative of my peers voting me in that, but I'm really more appreciative of my team that was willing to do all the work I asked of them so we could get to that point.
But Dave, before I let you go, I'm going to let you have the floor for a second, say some thank yous, because I know there's a lot of people that go into the program that don't get mentioned. You know, I know Nina, you know, being my boss, but your wife.
My boss too.
Yeah, your boss too. But, you know, your family, all the support that you've got from, you know, everyone on campus. So I know you don't want to pick out names because obviously we always tend to forget somebody. You look back on, oh, crap. But yeah, just this next moment is yours to thank and appreciate everyone.
Yeah. Well, it starts with our leadership here at Itawamba. I feel like we have the best leadership team in all of the entire MACJC. We definitely have the best athletic directors. You know, she's got the most tenure and also the most experience, which means she has to deal with usually more than anybody else, because usually everybody comes and asks her the questions because they feel like she knows the answers. But Coach Carrie Ball Williams, you know, she's the one that really allows us to have the freedom to direct our teams and lead our teams, and doesn't really step in and micromanage that. And I feel like that's a big compliment to how she's led and managed by our administration, Dr. Brad Boggs, and as the Vice President of Student Affairs and Student Activities, as well as our overall President, Dr. Jay Allen. You know, since he's been here, going on his third season, he's been a familiar face that's always been on our sidelines, both on home matches whenever he's in town and not campaigning for more funds for this institution, but also whenever we have a away opponent. If he can travel to a game, him and Dr. Boggs are going to be on the sideline supporting us. And so we certainly appreciate all of the leadership from the president all the way down to the faculty and staff. Y'all's department, you know, you guys are lights out for everything that you do for our players, both while they're here and then also once they're taking that next step and looking to go on. We always appreciate how you guys promote our players. One big recruiting factor we have is what you guys do with your social media outlets and your websites, and that's a big factor for us. And even though we don't have assistants in the titles, we have a lot of assistants across this entire campus. And so there's probably 570 assistants that I could say thank you to. We had a sponsorship program this year, and our players were asked to go and raise funds on their behalf for just some additional things that we wanted to just promote to the program a little bit more. And the feedback and the outpouring of support within that sponsorship program really helped our program, I feel like, take that next level to success. And so just to thank all those sponsors that helped out, whether they were corporate sponsors or individual family sponsors, we thank them, because we were able to stay over in some hotels that maybe before we hadn't been able to, have a few nicer meals than maybe what we hadn't been able to, equipped our team with a little bit nicer gear than what we've been able to do in the past. And it's all because of those sponsors and also the leaders within our program and within our college that are wanting just this program to grow as much as what I do. And we want this to be a benchmark of what it can be for 2020 and what it can be for 2021 and moving forward. And I feel like we're able to do that with just the great support staff that we have.